Victoria Reynolds, back again with us.
Back again.
To talk about another section of your book, Transcending Fear.
Yes.
And this section is Believe in Yourself.
Correct. It is so important for people to believe in themselves. What happens is that most people go through life, well, at least me and probably a lot of other people out there, go through life believing in themselves based on other people's beliefs.
So they don't believe in themselves.
So they really don't.
Somebody else's opinion.
They believe in somebody else's beliefs about them and who they think they need to be, rather than just believing in who they are.
I think that's more common by far than ever believing in oneself.
Yeah, I think most people go through life based on what they think other people think they need to be.
Which can be a mess, because you can't live up to everybody else's expectations and forget about your own.
Yeah, it is actually impossible to live up to other people's expectations, because every human being on the planet has different expectations. What's normal for one person is not normal for another person. What one person expects is different than another person's. I mean, you can drive yourself insane trying to live up to other people's expectations. It's impossible.
It is impossible. But how in the world do we get people to understand that inside of themselves is an expectation or a desire that's worthy for themselves, that they're worthy?
Right.
How do we get that across?
Well, the first thing we need to do is start taking a look at our beliefs, and that is understanding the difference between what I call the difference between belief and truth. And in the book Transcending Fear, it's really based on the idea that there is only love and fear. There are only two real emotions on this planet. Everything we feel, every choice we make is either based in fear or it's based in love. So every emotion that is dark, oppressive, heavy, limiting is fear-based, and therefore it's a deception. Because fear isn't real. It's just our imagination.
Fear is induced.
Yeah. It's a deception. It's a lie, for lack of a better word. And every emotion that is supportive, that's light, that is expansive, is based in love. And it's real. That's what your truth is. So really, if we're going to start living this life that we absolutely love, it starts with believing in ourselves and believing our own truths, and deciphering what beliefs we have, if they really are in alignment with what is true for us, or if they're just beliefs that other people placed upon us and we bought into as truth.
Trying to live up to other people's expectations is an impossible situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know the difference anymore, because they're taught this is what you must do to be acceptable, and they internalize that. Tell me and tell them how they can start defining the difference between what someone else wants and what they want.
Well, it's all about how it feels inside. It requires that you get really in touch with how you feel and how it actually resonates inside of you. So if what you're being told doesn't feel right for you, like on a gut feeling level, that's not you. It's not right for you personally. What's true for me isn't necessarily what's going to be true for you. And as long as we live our lives based on other people's standards of what's best for us, we can feel that misalignment inside of ourselves. And what a lot of people do is go against that feeling inside themselves because they want so desperately to be accepted by everybody else. And so they repress who they really are and what's really true for them on the expectations of other people.
So they're actually willing to give up a certain amount of loss of self.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people never knew what self was, because when they're really, really, really small, these expectations get placed on them when they're 2 years old, before they even really get to know themselves. And parents who are parenting through what they think is love, and at the same time forcing a child to be who they think the child needs to be. And in denying ourselves even when we're that small, we start to lose sense of self. I think most of us as kids have a pretty good idea who we are. And then by bits and pieces, we stop forgetting who we are because we're trying to meet the expectations of the shoulds. And shoulds are always fear-based.
Shoulds are fear-based because if you don't do what you should, love will be withheld, acceptance will be withheld.
Right.
And those are basic human needs. So there again, are we not forfeiting bits of ourself to gain acceptance without realizing what we're doing?
Mm-hmm. Precisely. Precisely. And so when we get to a point in our lives where we decide, I'm done, usually for a lot of us, it happens after the midlife rebirth, as I call it. The breakdown that happens before the breakthrough, and you finally go, I'm just done with living my life by other people's expectations. You just get to a point where you're grown up enough that you decide that I'm going to take responsibility for my life, and it's time for me to be who I really am. And you really can get to that place in your life where you no longer care what other people think. Not in the sense that, I don't care what you think, kind of snotty and arrogant about it. It's about owning yourself and who you are and believing in yourself enough that it really doesn't matter. Yeah, so you get to a point in your life, I think a lot of us do, and those of us who have hit that midlife breakdown, that we can get to a point in our life where we're no longer driven by what anybody else thinks, and we feel good enough about who we are personally that we're no longer affected by what other people think about us.
So what we think about us, finally, for the first time, can take precedence.
Absolutely. And when what we think about ourselves takes the forefront, then the whole world opens up. A whole new world of opportunities opens up for us.
So if we think about ourselves with respect, the same respect we'd like to receive, we're in a safety zone and we're going forward.
Yes, and I hadn't thought about it in that kind of the golden rule, treat other people the way we want to be treated. How about treating ourselves the way we want to be treated?
So few people get that, especially women.
Right.
Women are taught to be the caretakers and always eternally benevolent. And for goodness sake, seed, you may be a BITCH.
Well, fortunately, here in America, some women are starting to understand that you can be a very successful businesswoman and also be feminine. We're finally getting to a place in business here in America. Those of us that are out there on the leading edge of business and out there on the leading edge of where we're going next, where we're starting to understand that collaboration is a much more positive environment for women to work in than competition. Competition actually is what causes the BITCH. And then on the other side, we have women that think that we need to use what we got to get ahead, and that doesn't work either. There's no respect in using your body to get ahead.
No.
A woman who really understands her true power in being herself and being a confident woman is almost irresistible. Men like being around her, and women do too. So women who really know who they are and are really confident in themselves and really believe in themselves are very attractive. And, men want to be around them, women want to be around them, money wants to be around them, so does success. It's very attractive. Literally holding yourself in this space of confidence literally attracts to you that which you desire. And as long as we're trying to live ourselves in fear based on other people's expectations, we're practically repelling what we want rather than attracting.
That's really true.
Yeah.
That's really true. Because if you're afraid of other people's opinions, you're afraid to go forward, and you're afraid to be responsible for your decisions, and you can't go forward because you're afraid to take charge of your life.
Right. So in that, one of those fear-based emotions is doubt. Doubt is one of those fear-based emotions that keeps us from moving forward. Doubting ourselves or disbelieving how somebody will see us. It's fascinating. It really comes down to love and fear. And confidence in yourself is love-based. Doubt is fear-based.
Fear is used to undermine people from the time that we're children in order to control us. That's a pretty hard one to get over.
Well, fear in itself is very controlling. Whether we intentionally use fear or not to control other people, we live in what I call a fear-based reality, where by default, all of the choices that we make are fear-based until we consciously learn how to make choices that are love-based. That just unconsciously, fear is a controlling aspect in our life until we learn to use the power of love.
The power of love.
Yeah.
Too many people haven't even heard about
You
that.
don't even know what it is. An awful lot of people don't even know what love is. Most people think that love is, lovey-dovey between two people. Love is literally the essence that we're all made out of. It's a palpable energy that exists inside every one of us. And when we feel love between two people, it's the love in me connecting with the love that's in you. It's not a give and take, it's a receive and receive. It's literally the stuff that we're made out of, and we don't understand that because we live in this fear-based reality and we allow fear to be the driving force. And when we get what love really is and how powerful it is, we can consciously choose to live our lives literally in love with life.
And that takes confidence to know that everything's okay and trust yourself.
Right. Right. And self-trust is one of those loving things.
If you pay attention to the emotional guidelines of what you do, there's a built-in instinct if we would listen to it.
Right. And that built-in instinct is love-based.
And that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard men tell women something is wrong with them if they don't trust them. They have issues. And yet, every guy in every good business there is know that you trust but validate. You investigate. You find out the track record. What's their resume? What is their past?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to keep their contract? I mean, even credit companies, you fill out papers before you trust. So what is this propaganda that there's something wrong with women if they don't blindly trust?
You know, maybe it's something that's in the greater consciousness from thousands of years ago when women were owned by men and we really weren't allowed to develop this trust factor. And trust, ultimately, trusting other people stems from first trusting yourself. So if we're talking about men in business, they start to trust themselves first.
And
They trust themselves that they will make the right choice and a smart decision. And so they lay out all of the elements that are necessary before they invest their trust in someone else.
Right.
That's not something that has been, I think it is getting to be now because women are finally rising up and into that space of balance with masculine, but that's not something we've ever been taught. Because until fairly recently, we were considered property, and it was never about trust. It was about the man making the trusting choices. So as we have a lot of women out there who really have no idea how to trust themselves because they've never been taught how to have a relationship with themselves. It's all about your relationship with yourself.
You hit the nail on the head because it really is. If they can't trust themselves, how can they trust someone else? We were not designed as human beings, not just male and female, we were not designed to forfeit our mind and our intellect and our trust and our life and our body into someone else's hands and just say, I have none of these things because I am a child and a woman or whatever.
Right.
We were designed to take control of our life and learn to believe in ourselves. And it's a major project for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because it's not something that's taught.
No.
You know, unfortunately, a lot of us learn trust after we make a lot of stupid mistakes. Oh, I guess I shouldn't have trusted that person. Maybe I should listen to my intuition more.
There you go.
And women have an amazing intuition. It's a matter of learning how to listen to it. I mean, we innately know when we meet someone whether they're trustworthy or not, whether they are someone we are safe to invest our emotions into. So when women are extremely emotional, I gotta clarify men and women. I should say the masculine is very logical and the feminine is very emotional. And we're all both masculine and feminine. Most women tend to be more feminine. And so there's that inner intelligence, gut feeling that tells us whether someone is safe for us to invest our emotions in. And a lot of us don't know how to listen to ourselves. And if we did, we would know who is best to invest ourselves in and not.
Unfortunately, statistically, most women choose the familiar because they feel comfortable with the familiar, good or bad.
Right.
And repeat over and over generationally the same mistakes their parents did.
Right.
Because when they run into someone that's a circumstance that's familiar, they unwittingly feel comfortable because they know how that goes.
Right. Again, it's what we were talking about before in one of our other segments is the fear of change.
Exactly.
It's more comfortable to do something that hurts but familiar than it is to step into the unknown and not know what it's going to present you with. And so there's a level of trust that we have to trust that what's out there is actually something that's really good for us.
Someone once said, an old hound dog will lay down on 6 or 7 cockleburs and it'll hurt. But he doesn't want to get up and move because maybe next time he's going to lay on 2 dozen. And we're like that.
Yeah.
It takes courage to look inside of your life and say, this isn't working. What silly pattern do I keep repeating? What is there about me that I don't trust? Am I afraid to assume the responsibility of my choices? Do I want to remain a child and never have a voice? Do I want to hide under a rock and let somebody else bring me food? Or do I want to stand up, examine my choices, make them, take them, and live and be free and confident?
Yeah, and ultimately that requires a conscious choice. And at some point in our lives, we need to decide, am I ready to take conscious control of my life? So part of believing in yourself comes down to learning how to take control of your life. Now let me explain, because everybody will say, oh, you can't control your life. In a sense, you can. Believing in yourself starts with learning how to control your life. You control your perceptions, you control your choices, you control your actions. And in that way, you are the creator of your reality. You can't control necessarily the circumstances that arrive in your life. However, you control how you respond to those circumstances, and you control the direction that you want your life to go. And that understanding that you have that ability in your life to control the direction of your life is a part of learning how to believe in yourself, because ultimately you're the creator.
So the direction of choice really is yours, and that's why you're creating it, because your life goes the direction of your choices. So if you refuse to choose and give your power to someone who doesn't care about you or is going to use you, that is a choice.
Correct.
And the results will be according to your choice.
Yeah, so you, in a sense, even though you've given your control away to someone else to be the creator of your life, whether it's your husband creating your reality or wherever it is that you lay responsibility for your life, in essence, you're still creating that because you're the one that gave them the power to choose for you.
Right.
And you choose the perceptions that you have of that experience.
And blame them when it went wrong.
Yeah, and instead of, it ultimately comes down to how you view it. How I perceive something could be radically different than how you perceive it. Every human being on the planet has their own unique perception of every experience. That's why I say what's true for me isn't necessarily what's true for you, because how a circumstance is perceived is uniquely yours and uniquely mine, based partly on our own individual beliefs and all of our past experiences that brought us to this particular point. You can put two people in exactly the same circumstance and get two very, very different perspectives. It's all about perception.
And if we were honest and shared our perspectives without condemnation, we'd live in a wiser world.
Very much so, because we could learn from each other's experiences and learn from each other's perceptions. That's part of learning and growing.
Then you'd have to have a trust in yourself to share that, because you can't share something if you're afraid of rejection.
Correct. So part of that is owning the belief in yourself that what you see as your perception, and trust yourself that what you're saying is part of what could be good for the whole.
Then you have to be brave enough to be honest about your feelings, and then you may be rejected, so that's scary.
It's scary. So then fear rears its ugly head again. That prevents us from being ourselves.
And that's a choice.
That again is a choice, precisely.
And you're once again responsible for the choice.
Correct. And in that, you are again responsible for your reality.
That's a good lesson. That is a very good lesson. Now, I realize that in this wonderful book that you wrote, that you have all sorts of exercises and pages of information to help people really grasp and move forward and take advantage of and incorporate into their lives these individual steps to help them become the master of their own destiny.
Right.
And to understand that every choice they make or refuse to make is still a choice.
It's still a choice.
And wittingly or unwittingly, we experience the cause and effect of our own behavior or lack of it.
Right. And so ultimately we have the power.
Talk a little about the power.
Well, ultimately it's the power of love, but it's really the power of the freedom of choice. And ultimately, like I said, we're the ones that are the creators of our reality based on the power that comes with self-responsibility. And again, in believing in yourself. You know, when a child is put down to the point where they have no self-confidence and no self-belief, they are powerless, powerless. And with confidence, as we rebuild our confidence and understand our true worth, we become powerful. This is why this relationship with yourself is so vitally important. This self-confidence, self-respect is powerful.
To understand self-respect is one thing. To do it is just beyond those that are really, really stuck. They think. It's not really beyond, but they think it is. So if they just sat down and started to write down all their qualities, it might help get them started.
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the tools that I recommend. So you go back through your life and you write down all of the successes that you've had in your life, because I don't care how much of a failure you think you are, there are going to be successes in your life. And as I said in the last session, if you go back through your perceived failures and write down the lessons that you learned from those perceived failures, which actually turns them into successes, write those down. Write down everything you succeeded at, every valuable lesson that you've learned. Write down the gifts that you were born with that you might have forgotten that you had. Go back to when you were a kid and think about the things that you loved doing when you were a kid. You know, for me, I didn't think I had any gifts that I was born with until I started writing, and then I remembered that I was an excellent speller. I was a crazy, nerdy speller in school. I just, you know, you give me a big, long word and I could see it across my forehead. I was that freaky of a speller. Never saw that as a gift until I started writing. There's like a thesaurus in my head.
That's great.
It's great. But I never saw it as a gift. I never had any value attached to it because I was just a nerd that got straight A in English. But I never saw it as a gift. And as you're taking inventory, think about the things that people told you when you were a kid were your weaknesses, and they're probably your greatest strengths. So, for example, when I was little, I was told I was too loud and that I talked too much. Hello? Why do you think I'm in front of a camera?
Right.
Because I'm too loud and I talk too much. And I love it that I'm finally being able to be myself. What I was told were my weaknesses as a child are actually my greatest gifts.
I found that to be true with myself.
Right.
I was always told that I was pig-headed and stubborn, just like my father. And my tenacity has been what has carried me. Strongest gift I have. I stick to it, and I'm determined, and I go forward.
Excellent.
And that's it.
A big part of learning how to really believe in yourself is to really question your beliefs. I call this rethinking what you think you believe. And understand that most of the beliefs that we have about ourselves are actually other people's beliefs that were placed upon us that we bought into as truth. And they're actually not even ours. We pick them up from parents, from church, from TV, from school, from teachers, from other kids. And sometimes we created them as a way of making sense in the world around us. For example, I'll give you one of my clients. We're trying to help her break through some money beliefs and help her break through to the next level in her business. And what we discovered when I started asking her some questions, she's never been able to make more than $70,000 a year. And then she would sabotage herself. And we finally figured out that when she was a little girl, she heard her dad once say, $70,000 is more than enough. I don't need to make more than $70,000. As a little girl, she heard that and bought that into her reality.
Whoa.
So once we found that, we were able to apply self-forgiveness to it, and then she was able to break through that $70,000 ceiling that she was sitting at, because she realized it was her dad's belief, not hers.
Wow.
Isn't that fascinating?
Liberating.
And very, very. So anytime there is a belief that's limiting, that says this is all you can make, that's when you know it's a deception. It's not true. When she finally got into her truth said the sky is the limit. Let's go for it. Your truth will always love and support you. Part of this process is trying to find those limiting beliefs and where they came from so that you can work through them and let those suckers go, because they're not even yours. Everything stems from your relationship with yourself. Love yourself first. Love yourself no matter what. Unconditionally loving other people stems from learning how to unconditionally loving yourself.
And it must come in that order.
Yeah.
Great lesson. Everybody needed this. It's a lot of healing can come from this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a pleasure to be here as always.